In the final years of the 15th century, Rome was not the serene spiritual capital imagined in later centuries, but a restless, dangerous city where power, faith, and ambition collided daily. The Vatican stood at the center of this collision. The Pope was not only the spiritual leader of Christendom, but a temporal ruler, commanding armies, negotiating alliances, and shaping the destinies of families and nations. When Rodrigo Borgia ascended the papal throne in 1492 as Pope Alexander VI, the balance of power in Italy shifted decisively. His election itself was controversial, surrounded by allegations of bribery and political bargaining, but such practices were not uncommon in an era when the papacy functioned as both church and state. Alexander VI was brilliant, calculating, and unapologetically devoted to advancing his family's fortunes, and it was this devotion that would bind his name forever to scandal, rumor, and legend. The Borgias were outsiders in Rome. Rodrigo Borgia was Spanish, not Italian, and this alone made him suspect among Rome's entrenched noble families. The Orsini, Colonna, and other powerful clans viewed the Borgias as interlopers who had seized control of the most powerful office in Christendom. To secure his position, Alexander VI relied heavily on his children, most notably Cesare Borgia and Lucrezia Borgia. Though illegitimate by birth, they were openly acknowledged, educated, and placed at the center of papal strategy. This openness shocked contemporaries, but also reflected the reality of Renaissance politics, where bloodlines mattered more than moral appearances. Lucrezia Borgia, in particular, became the focal point of fascination and slander. She was young, intelligent, and politically valuable, and her marriages were used as diplomatic tools to secure alliances in an Italy constantly shifting between war and uneasy peace. Her first marriage, to Giovanni Sforza of Milan, was intended to bind the Borgias to one of Italy's most powerful dynasties. When that alliance lost its usefulness, the marriage was annulled under the claim of non-consummation, a deeply humiliating charge that Sforza publicly rejected. In his anger, he retaliated not with armies but with words, spreading rumors that would echo through history. He accused the Borgias of incest, corruption, and unspeakable moral crimes, knowing full well that such accusations would stain reputations far longer than any political defeat. It is from this atmosphere that the most sensational legends emerge, including stories suggesting obscene spectacles within the Vatican itself. Chroniclers like Johann Burchard, the papal master of ceremonies, recorded events at court with remarkable detail, but his writings are a mixture of observation, hearsay, and moral judgment. Later generations seized on the most scandalous passages, often stripping them of context or exaggerating their implications. Over time, rumor hardened into narrative and narrative into supposed fact. Claims that the Vatican watched acts of sexual excess or that Lucrezia herself was involved in such spectacles cannot be proven by reliable contemporary evidence. No document written at the time by a neutral observer confirms such events as literal truth. What exists instead is a web of accusation shaped by political rivalry, personal revenge, and the deep unease many felt about a papacy that behaved like a royal court. The idea of 3 times in one night belongs more to this world of rumor than to documented history. Renaissance Italy was a society where reputation was a weapon, and sexual slander was one of the sharpest blades available. To accuse a rival of moral depravity was to undermine their legitimacy in a culture that still claimed spiritual authority as its foundation. For the Borgias, already viewed with suspicion due to their foreign origins and aggressive consolidation of power, such accusations found fertile ground. Enemies repeated them, poets embellished them, and later writers sensationalized them further, until myth and memory became nearly inseparable. Yet when historians strip away these layers, a more complex and human picture emerges. Lucrezia Borgia, far from being a passive symbol of corruption, later governed territories, managed estates, and became a respected patron of art and literature in Ferrara after her final marriage to Alfonso d'Este. Contemporary letters from poets, diplomats, and courtiers describe her as intelligent, composed, and politically astute. These voices rarely appear in the popular imagination, drowned out by centuries of scandal-driven storytelling. Her transformation from vilified daughter of a controversial pope to admired duchess challenges the simplest versions of the legend. The Vatican itself, during Alexander II's reign, was undoubtedly corrupt by modern standards, but it was not uniquely so for its time. Nepotism, bribery, and moral compromise were common across European courts, both secular and religious. What made the Borgias exceptional was not merely their behavior but their success. They rose quickly, ruled aggressively, and fell dramatically. When Alexander VI died in 1503, Cesare Borgia's power collapsed almost overnight, and with it the family's political dominance. In the aftermath, their enemies wrote the history, and history written by enemies is rarely forgiving. The enduring power of these stories lies not in their certainty but in their ambiguity. The lack of clear evidence allows imagination to fill the gaps, and the setting, the Vatican, the papacy, the supposed guardians of morality, makes every rumor feel more shocking. The phrase, "and the Vatican watched," resonates because it suggests hypocrisy, spectacle, and moral inversion, themes that continue to fascinate modern audiences. But fascination is not proof, and historians today approach such claims with caution, weighing sources against motives and context. In the end, the truth of that night, or whether such a night ever existed at all, remains unknowable. What is known is that the Borgias lived at the intersection of power and perception, where every action was magnified and every whisper weaponized. Their story is less about a single scandal and more about how history is shaped by those who tell it. The Vatican did watch many things during that era. Wars unfold, alliances crumble, families rise and fall. Whether it watched the events described in legend is far less certain. What it unquestionably witnessed was the transformation of rumor into history, and history into myth, a process as enduring as the stone walls of Rome itself.